fine. Then if that's what you think I am, that's what I'm gonna be. And I had to look her straight in the eye. And I said, don't. I carried this long enough for everybody. Don't you dare.
Well, today is going to be a very powerful episode, and it's actually a part two. We're going to sit down and spend a little bit more time with Lucy Alvarez today and really get into what happened to her, for her, all those things post-childhood, which was incredibly traumatic. I do want to warn you up front, there's a couple of scenes that she describes in today's interview that are fairly graphic, and so, proceed with, caution if you're a little sensitive to these types of things. Before we get into her episode, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Dr. Elizabeth Fedrick for spending the month of July with us here so that we all might get a little bit more in tune with that intimacy word. And I hope, like me, you learned so much about yourself and kind of like what your language is when it comes to intimacy. And then also, I hope that you were planted with some ideas and some seeds to improve your intimacy with everybody in your life. As we explored so many times over that month, it's not just about intimacy with your spouse and sex. There's so many more layers to that. So go get it. Everybody's going to benefit from us trying to be closer with each other and create more intimate moments. Okay, that said, let's get to today's episode of Learn from People Who Lived It with myself, Dr. David Lycan, and Lucy Alvarez.
Looking for no bullshit conversation about mental health? Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It. I am Mathew. In the middle of my screen, Dr. David Lycan. Hello, sir.
Hey, it's a pleasure as always.
And on the very right, we're going to recognize Lucy Alvarez, who's back for her second appearance here on Learn from People Who Lived It. How are you?
Hi, very well. Thanks for having me back.
I'm excited to have you back. And we probably said it about 4 or 5 times while we were in the middle of the first recording with you. It was like, we got to have her back. We got to have her back. I think we said it 3 or 4 times. And we wanted to bring you back, Lucy, for a couple of different reasons. But the biggest one of them all is, while we spent a lot of time talking about the abuse that you suffered at the hands of your stepfather growing up, we didn't really talk about what came next. I mean, we touched on it, right? Like to use your words, we did a little island hopping where we kind of hit the periphery of some of these things. But you said something earlier where you said, it's funny because the abuse stopped from him, but then I started abusing myself. And I thought, wow, that's a perfect place to kind of pick up this conversation, because it's interesting how the abuse can stop from one dynamic, but you can actually pick it up and with the lessons you've learned along the way, keep doing it to yourself, huh?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And that's really exactly what happened. It's like I had come to think so less of myself and so unworthy and so not like the rest and not normal. And I knew it. It's like I knew something was off. I had the ick, but I couldn't tell you what it was. The naivety, the innocence of a child. I didn't know. I was 8. 8-year-olds are dumb. I was dumb. I didn't know. But yet you still feel that ick. And so after I had been put down for so long, and I'm not worthy, and I'm only around for this, and I'm only good for that, and I'm a liar anyway. I'm a this anyway. I'm a that anyway. Whatever stories were made up about me to discredit me, as a child. So it was, fuck it. Okay, let me show you that. I'll show you what bad is, kind of thing. And I was like rebelling against the world, my family, but really hurting myself, abusing myself. I was the only one suffering the consequences, and probably my mother, my brother, I was, and even now to this day, I'm still suffering some of those consequences from, that rebellion and those drugs or alcohol or, the attempted suicide. It's just all part of this vicious cycle that I found myself in. I didn't put myself there, but I found myself in it, you know? Um, and so what happened afterward, let's say, at about 12, almost 13, I was about to turn 13. And we had moved, and they were divorcing. My mom, you know, was, they had their own issues. So, it was kind of I started in a new school with a new house without my abuser. And I just, I kept it going. I didn't know what to do. I know I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel. So that's where the smoking cigarettes, the drinking. I mean, I was sneaking into my mom's liquor cabinet. I mean, pouring rum into my Pepsi can and filling it back up with water, you know, like just and I was 13 years old in 8th grade going to school like this, you know, because I couldn't think, I couldn't feel, I couldn't process, because I knew whatever it was not good. And it's like I knew I had been tricked, manipulated, lied to, stolen from, you know, so many things were taken from me. And I didn't know how to, you know, process.
Can I pause you really quick? Because I want to go to Dave, and I just want to ask you a question from, you know, from your standpoint, Dr. Dave. When somebody suffers that trauma, what is it about that trauma that then wires them to kind of keep it going for themselves? And, you know, I talk a lot about self-sabotage, but I want your thoughts and opinions is the word I'm trying to spit out on that.
There's two different dynamics at play. One is, and especially when it comes to relationships involving caretakers, going back into the situation and trying to replay it for the sake of mastery, right? So it didn't go the first time, and then find yourself back in those situations trying to get a different outcome from it. So you're replaying the same trauma with different people in different settings. So that's one dynamic at play, and that's true especially with relationships. If you had been in an abusive relationship that had modeled abuse from the past, it's very easy to get back into those relationships because it's familiar, you know the patterns, but there's always kind of this unconscious hope that maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe I can be better. Maybe I can do something different. This person is bad, but, you know, maybe I can, you know, love them enough to change them, or, you know, there's different ways that it can play out. Another piece of it too, and especially as an emerging teenager, is kind of this idea of, well, if I can't be good, I'm going to be the best at being bad. And kind of seeing if you can push the boundaries of, it's kind of like an anti-accomplishment. You know, you can't be the best at being the best, so you'll be the best at being terrible.
That resonated with you, didn't it, Lucy?
Yeah, they both did, for very different reasons. But yeah, they both did. I can feel and go back to that, and I can feel it. I can sense it. You know, yeah, because that title was put on me. He did a lot of discrediting, of my word, anything. Oh, but that's a lie. But that's a lie. And no, it isn't. That's exactly what happened. Why are you calling me a liar? And so then after a while, it's like, fuck it. Fine. Then if that's what you think I am, that's what I'm going to be. You know, like, let me show you. I'll show you.
I'll take it to a new degree now.
Yeah. Yes. So
can I ask you, were you showing up to school drunk?
Oh yeah. High, drunk. I mean, it started with, like I said, alcohol and cigarettes through middle school. And then in high school, you know, it's like I kind of tried to be good for like a minute, like, okay, the new school, new space, big place, let me try, you know. And it kind of like Dr. Dave said, it's just so familiar. You go back to, plus, feeling again, feeling stupid again, you know? And so then it's like, let me drown this. I can't right now. I can't do this, you know? And so then, it's, you know, marijuana, you know, and they call it the gateway drug. And I have to say, it's actually the drug that probably helped the most out of everything, excuse me. you know, I still use to this day. It helps me sleep. It helps me go to the bathroom. It helps me be hungry. It helps me want to eat. It helps wind my body down. My body is in constant fight or flight constantly. I am wound up constantly. I am a hypo. Does anyone remember that bit from SNL? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I have to just like, you know, and breathe and feel, remind myself it's okay to feel. And so marijuana helps me do that to this day. So ironically, that's the one that probably benefited me the most. And then from there, you know, it started parties, you know, then you'd go to parties. And then that's where then a whole new world, you know. And back then, I don't know, the whole age thing was a lot looser than it is now. I remember being 15, 16 years old and going to college frat parties and sorority parties. I mean, I don't know. It was different. The 90s, the 90s were different back then. I don't know.
So you're doing some drugs, you're drinking a little bit, you're at these parties. Are you abusing yourself in these parties? Are you in relationships with men and women that are not healthy, or is that not part of the equation? Because I'm fascinated with this piece specifically, given your history.
Not yet. I was still terrified. Okay. I was actually the one who was so scared. I was like, it was a joke. I was like the world's running longest virgin, because I was like, no, like I can't go anywhere. You have a penis. No, like right. Scared. And so I lost myself in the drugs, in the partying. I mean, and then the drugs got harder and harder and harder. I mean,
like what? Now, what are you talking about?
Cocaine, LSD, ketamine, all the pills that we would crush them and then bump them, and ketamine back then we'd crush it, and ecstasy. I mean, do you know how many ecstasy I used to sell? Back then it was, now they call it Molly, and then it went MDMA, ecstasy. Back then it was ecstasy. Just a lot of hard stuff all the time. You know, my mother found cocaine, marijuana, cash, cigarettes in my backpack. I was 15 years old. And she had me arrested in my own house, in my own bedroom. The police came into my own bedroom and arrested me in my own house, in my own bedroom. Nowhere was safe. Then I started running away because I was like, well, I don't know if I'm at home. And then I just started, you know. But yeah. No,
Isn't that interesting? Because your mom guaranteed, right, Dr. Dave, her parents were thinking, we'll scare the shit out of her. We'll have the police come and they'll do the search and they'll scare the shit out of her. And it's so funny because that's not what happened at all.
No. And I got arrested. I was charged. I was a minor because I had some hardcore illicit. I mean, I had cocaine, you know, in my backpack at school. Like, and then I got home and it was in my bag. So anyway, I did have to go through like the what's it called? Community service. And I had to do like the task, right? Like the drug test every week. So this is where it got ironic. So then I was like, fine, I have to stop smoking dope. Okay, weed, like that. Okay, fine. So then ironically, that's when I started getting into, then LSD. I mean, I had mushrooms, ecstasy, because then it was like I still needed something. And if you're not going to let me smoke or drink, I have to somehow still get lost. I can't live with myself like this, you know? And so you do whatever you have to do.
Let's talk about that. We just need to pause, and I need to bring in the psychiatrist here, because everybody, myself included, is completely guilty of self-medicating from time to time and taking it upon myself to numb out the feelings. Dave, we certainly think we're doing something positive for ourselves, and it feels good to just try to get away. But what is happening exactly?
Well, if you're numbing out your feelings, you're not addressing the source of the pain. So the source of the pain is still there. You've deferred it. You haven't dealt with it. And then as soon as the drugs wear off or the alcohol wears off, the problem is right there, now bigger because you put it off. So it's digging a hole deeper and deeper. That's typically what happens. But I'm curious, Lucy, were you aware of some of the things that you were trying to not feel?
Yeah, by that point, I call it the stupid syndrome, right? Because then I started blaming myself. Why didn't I say anything? Why didn't I tell somebody? Why didn't I? Then comes that self, like, how could you let this happen? How could you do this to yourself, Lucianne? How could you?
Childhood abuse or the more recent stuff?
The childhood abuse. Why I didn't say anything? Why I believed the lies that were fed to me, you know? And now I know because I was 8. Right. Period. I was 8. But back then I didn't know that. I kept blaming myself. How I could be so stupid, how I could let this happen. It was my own fault. Why didn't I stop it? I could have stopped it. Had I said something, had I done something, but I believed the tricks, the manipulation, the lies, the everyone else had started believing it. Even the fact that I was doing poorly in school only helped his case. See, she is stupid. See, she is dumb. See, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I had that message my whole life. And even my family members who started believing it, people like my grandmother who weren't even, instead of rescuing me or saving me or seeing something was wrong, or teacher or anyone, seeing that something's not right here, no one saw me, for Lucy, for that kid, for who I was. Everyone just believed this adult and this pack of lies. I believed the adult. I believed the pack of lies.
How about right now?
I know what it was. A pack of lies and a pack of bullshit that was given to me. And it's okay that I believed it because I was 8 and I was innocent and I was beautiful and naive and loving and trusting and exactly what 8-year-olds are supposed to be. And I have forgiven her for feeling stupid, for not saving herself because she was 8. You know, it's
diabolical about abuse is, you know, you to perpetuate the abuse, you have to keep the other person engaged. And that usually involves, you know, scaring them, lying to them, you know, twisting things around to make it believe that their fault. Well, you know, you participated, so you're just as much involved in this as I am. And, you know, so in order to keep it going, you can't, you have to bring the other person in and twist their mind around with it. And again, for an 8-year-old, where are you supposed to go if you can't go to the people that are supposed to be taking care of you? You know, you can't just leave. You're not capable of taking care of yourself. You're stuck in that situation.
Now you get through or into high school. What's happening now? What's life like now?
It's like by the time I got to high school, I got resourceful. What's my fastest ticket out of here? My brain. They all underestimate me. Good. That's actually working to my advantage, you know? And so then I cranked out high school because I just wanted to get out of there and wanted to get out of the house because I figured if I'm out of high school and I'm in college, that means I move out, right? Okay. And by then, like I said, the abuser was gone and my mom had remarried. And that was another thing, Dr. Dave. I'm sure you're gonna have a field day with this. That husband was my mom's then 3rd husband while I was in high school. So my father died, right? That was her first husband. Then the abuser came and went. And then she remarried, which he was amazing. He is who I consider my stepfather, my dad, you know, because of him, I got family and travel. And this was kind of during these high school years. And my brain, along with the drugs, was able to like, oh, there's other ways of doing things. There's other cultures. There's other things. I remember being in Atlanta and being like, man, people are sexy in Atlanta. Like, I don't know. And so anyway, high school, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to use my brain. I was still partying. I was just being smart. I wasn't being caught. I was still doing lots of drugs. I was still selling drugs. I was still taking the drugs. I was still partying. I was still, slanging in high school in the hallways. But I was smart about it because I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to move on. And so I cranked out of high school in 3 years. I was only in high school for 3 years. And by then, my I have a losing virginity story, and then I have the real losing virginity story, and then I don't know. It's somewhere in between. I don't know. It did finally happen in high school. I was about to graduate. So, it's interesting because there was this guy who really liked me and he was really good to me. And gosh, guys, I didn't know it. I mean, you could have beat me over the head and said, this is the golden ticket. And I couldn't tell you what good was. I couldn't tell you what a good thing was. I gave up a very good thing for very stupid reasons to kind of keep going with this, self-discovery, rebellion, drug, alcohol, thing. Let me, wow everybody and get out of high school in 3 years and see I'm not stupid and start college at 17 and, but yeah, I gave up something pretty good. I didn't know good when I saw it. And of course I just kept gravitating toward the bad, the not going to support Lou, not going to love Lou, not going to lift up, not going to encourage, not help, not, just take or party or not really care about me. But that's all I knew. So it was okay. I was okay with that. I was familiar, like you said, Dr. Dave, with that. It's like what I gravitated towards. And that was still part of that like self-abuse, I guess, even though I was still doing well in a lot of ways, but there's always that like one dark, I don't know, streak. It's hard to navigate through or against, or, I don't know.
Well, I was kind of wondering through high school, since you found this level of achievement and you're putting your head into the books and trying to graduate early and everything, did any of the teachers or any of the adults suspect that you were still involved with using drugs, or did anybody ever bring that up at all?
Not at school. It was like the one good thing, right? At home, my mom and my brother, we were all still suffering as far as, back then there were no cell phones. You guys remember this? It was different. You would leave for 2 days and not come home. It was just different. You might call from your friend's phone or something, but I don't know. It was no cell phone. So anyway, it was more on a personal level. Yes, we were still going through the drugs, the running away, the back and forth, the, sneaking in and out. You're grounded. Ha ha. I was like, what? Like a lizard. I could just, my mom blockaded my window from the outside in like a slippery little gecko. I got all the way through. I have a friend. It's a great story. I literally was able to, she boarded it up. I don't know. I boarded my window and I got through. So at the home level, it's like by that point I had discovered my home self and my world self, right? Like that job, I had worked, I started babysitting, I was making money, I had to get drugs, so I had this like, met families through the church, and like would babysit. I would never do drugs while babysitting though. That I definitely had like a moral compass because I was like, if something happens to these kids while I'm, fucked up,
that's a mess.
I'm screwed, and I knew that back then. I knew how to play it safe, so I would babysit, make lots of money, and then party hard.
I know that you have a pregnancy that comes to you as a teenager. Where are you? Where are we chronologically here in this?
So 17, 18, these are my drug kind of raving days. I just graduated from high school, going to college, not really, just kind of still partying hard, kind of still that drug, rave, partying, alcohol fueled lifestyle, And then right before I got pregnant, a couple things started happening, a couple of major life lessons that that made me change my ways. And I remember thinking, I'm next. I'm next. If I don't get out of this, I could die. I could be next. We had a friend, you know, they found him tortured, beaten, burned, shot in the backseat of his own car.
Oh my God.
He was stealing the drugs that we were doing, and we didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't know who else knew or who didn't know. I personally didn't know. And so, you know, I learned a very important lesson, that nothing is free. There is absolutely nothing in this world that's free, because he paid a price. We all paid a price. And so we thought we were partying, having a good time, doing all these drugs. I mean, like bricks of coke and pounds of weed. And, you know, you just think that you're balling, you know, you're 17, 18 years old. Like, oh yeah, you know, no. It was like the other side, the unglamorous side came out. And we were so close. I mean, how many nights all together? How many days? How many nights? All of us together. We were a big group. My best friend, her boyfriend, they were best friends. They were actually cousins. And so that it was such a tight knit group. We were always together. I mean, and I remember when they found his body, I mean, closed casket. I remember that funeral. I remember it changed me, because I remember thinking, like I said, I'm next. I could be next. This could be me. And nothing is free. And in fact, I almost looked inward, and I remember thinking, you should know that, Lucianne, like nothing's free. There's always a price to pay for something, you know? And because back then I was still very much like that self-deprecating, self-sabotaging, like, yeah, you got what you deserve. That's, you know, like I somehow deserved what I got as a child. And so, you know, and so it was a big and then not even, I mean, within the same year, guys, I was living in, you know, because I was out of the house. My mom had to emancipate me to like live in an apartment, to go to ASU at the time, you know, like I was underage. And so she basically had to sign a bunch of so I was living in an apartment with my best friend. We're still friends to this day. I have to say, we're still best friends to this day. We, of course, had our ups and downs, and we went through a few years where we didn't talk. We were roommates and best friends. And while we were working and, you know, doing our thing, we were both had jobs. Her boyfriend, who was significantly older. Again, back then the lines were more blurred. Plus by then she was 18, 19 years old. I was the one who was young. You know, she was older than me. Everyone was older than me. So he would stay at our house while we were at work, drink our alcohol, smoke our weed, eat our food. He would gamble. They would go play cards, him and his friends, gamble with her money. I mean, and I remember thinking, I remember coming home from work one day, the house being a complete disaster. All my weed was gone. And I just come home from work. I was like, what? And so I said something. And so then she went to go say something. And guys, seconds later, minutes, maybe a minute or two, I went in there and I saw her head. He grabbed her by the head and he slammed her head through the shower door. Yeah. And it shattered everywhere. She had glass shards. She has long blonde hair, red everywhere, blood dripping. I mean, glass everywhere. The noise, screaming. She's screaming. He's screaming at her. She's screaming in pain. And I remember thinking, I'm enabling this. I'm doing this. Why am I allowing this to happen? I'm accidentally part of the problem here. And it was one of those moments where you just have to look yourself in the face and you think, oh my God, I'm next. He's going to put my head through that shower next. I'm next. I'm the one who said something.
Well, what part of the situation did you feel was your responsibility at the time?
Because I knew that what he was doing was wrong, that he was using her, that he was using us, that he was using our apartment for his pleasure. He wasn't at work. He you know, it's like I knew that he was bad news to her And even bad news to me, even
Right.
just being by association, just being her roommate, just being her best friend, bad news for me. It was just bad news all around. And I knew that me staying there was going to allow this to continue to happen. So I couldn't, it's like I had to go. I can't do this. A, I'm scared for my own safety. And B, I know if I stay, this is only going to continue. And then it's my fault. Like, I'm enabling this behavior to happen. I'm saying it's okay to not work. And while I'm gone all day, that you're coming in here. So that's where I had the power. I felt I had the power to say, no, then I'm out. Mandy, you come with me or you don't, but I can't do that. Like, I'm out. Like, I can't do this to myself, and I can't continue doing this to you, because I knew that I was enabling him to be able to do this to her. And this is not okay.
One of the reasons I was glad you asked that question was because I to me, that feels tied back to your childhood. To me, it feels tied back to those experiences you had as a little girl where you started to play that blame game on yourself, and, you're part of the problem. And I don't know, from my vantage point, at least the way that you shared the story with us, I didn't feel like a lick of that is really your problem, right? I mean, your friend is an adult. The other person is an adult, seemingly three adults making choices under one roof. Not great choices, but I just didn't feel, it didn't come through to me like that was on you. But then on the same breath, I'm really happy that you were in a point in your life where you could make the choice to change your environment and do everything for yourself the way you probably wished you could have done 1,000 times for that little 8-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
And, up until your roommate was put through the shower door, I think at that point you pretty much see where things are going and the full potential of this guy that's kind of glomming off of you. And if you stayed with it at that point, I think it would be hard to justify.
That's exactly right, Dr. Dave. It was like, it had been bad. I'm going to leave him. Then she goes back. I'm going to leave him. Then he comes back. And then it had been bad. But that was like the first, eyes this big, mouth to the ground. I'm still speechless. I still run that scene over in my head, and I'm still speechless to this day, and it's like, I knew I had to do whatever it took to like get out of there, yeah.
It also highlights another point with abusers. Things build slowly. There's a grooming process that's involved. The charm is turned on. You get somebody into a relationship, you pump them up with, false compliments, or maybe the compliments are real, but the intention behind them is false, and you build that relationship over time, and then you start drawing from it and taking away from it and taking advantage of it, and at that point you've created a situation where the person is maybe dependent on you or emotionally dependent on you because, when they're good, they're so good, but then when they're bad, it's just intolerable.
Right. Unhealthy.
It's hard to draw that line, when there's something that's overtly violent like that. I think it's shocking to everybody. And so you have an opportunity there to kind of step back from the situation and look at it and say, okay, what am I going to do here? Like, I can't continue with this.
It was almost like a couple of things started happening, it was like that. And then literally a few months later, and I'm like, okay, this lifestyle isn't working for me. Right. Like I'm in this. So here I find myself like, now what am I going to do? I can't stay in this lifestyle. I can't keep doing drugs. I can't keep surrounding myself around people like this. So now how do then what happened? I got pregnant. So there's that, like, I'm self-distracting, self-sabotage. This like, I don't know. And I have to say, because I had to get out of this situation. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, your brain worked for you so far, right? Like, you kind of got through high school. You did well. You got out of there. Okay, let's try this school thing. Like, let's take it seriously, because this whole time I'd been kind of dabbling in school part-time. Oh, drop this class. Oh, show up to this class whenever, And so I kind of thought, okay, it was almost like that 1 year after high school, but I was still supposed to be in high school, right? So it was like my cheat year, my free year. And so then by the time it was like, okay, now I'm really supposed to graduate from high school. Okay, so then I went back to college, kind of like that. And I thought, okay, in my head, I was like, well, back then we didn't call it what do they call it now? A leap year. And so then I went back to school, got a little part-time job at the college campus, meeting people like me, trying to decide, changing majors, doing my thing. Started meeting some really great people on campus through a job. I was working through Head Start with preschoolers. Met this guy named James. Met his roommate, Cliff, and the rest is history. Cliff and I ended up having a wonderful, loving relationship. We moved in together. Got pregnant. We did the whole thing. We got married, bought the house, bought the truck, and 6 months later was like divorce. I mean, guys, it was all very fast because I got pregnant at 19, had that baby at 20, graduated college at 22. I ended up taking one semester off in between. Hannah was born in October, so I finished that semester, literally had a baby, still finished that semester, took that next semester off, and then got into my program, actually, the way it worked out. And so I graduated college at the age of 22 with my degree in education with my 2-year-old. By then she was 2. And by then I was divorced and living back home with my mom. So it was kind of like a fast and furious, guys. It was the world,
But I wonder if that isn't, and I wonder what you think about this, Dr. Dave. So I'm going to say it, then I want your commentary. I wonder if that's not the space in which you're suited for because of the way that you were brought up. I wonder if the fast lane with chaos and a lot going on and tons of moving parts isn't exactly what you thrive on at this stage of the game. Dave, your thoughts on that comment, and then I want Lucy to comment as well.
Yeah, I mean, if everything was going too well in the relationship, then it must be wrong.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna Forrest Gump on y'all. I don't know what love is. Like, I'm the opposite, right? I think I said this last time. Like Forrest Gump always said, I may not be a smart man, but I know what love is. I am a smart woman. I have no idea what love is, right? So I think here it is again. We had a lot of positives. We did. And Hannah was made in love, and we were together, and we were, faithful, and I don't know, like it was exclusive and harmonious, kind of, but it was, in the end, it's still, I'm not a healthy person. I don't love myself. I don't have like healthy thoughts and feelings. I don't have a good model of what love is or what love isn't. I only know what I know, and it's not good. And I just, like we were starting to get volatile, I think, with each other, like I think he started being kind of resentful, like, oh, we got pregnant, and oh, he had to we were having a lot of fun and just being together, and now it was like we have to change our lives. And I'm looking at him like, I'm 19, what do you want from me? Like, this is your fault. But again, we still had that kind of like beautiful, innocent love, and so we tried. It just, as soon as it started getting volatile, it was like, okay, it's just easier to leave and we can figure this out. And honestly, it worked out, because to this day, we love each other. We're best friends. We call each other on our birthdays and Mother's Days and Father's Days. And Christmas, we spend holidays together. It's very cool. Our families all love each other. We all, come out and support my daughter, and, so it's actually a very beautiful thing now. But back then it was starting to get kind of, and so it was like, you know what, we better not. Our families stepped in, and kind of said, no, this is not going to be good if it's going to continue like this.
So looking back on it now, did you see situations where you were maybe provoking things with him, like trying to create controversy, or was it just kind of the circumstances? Both of you were very young, and, obviously having a baby is game changing. I mean, your entire focus changes from yourself to this little one now.
Correct. I can honestly, innocently say I really wasn't trying to be explosive. I was going through a lot. My body was changed. I was changed. Everything, I think I was needy. And I think because I don't know how to take care of my needs, I can't show others how to take care of my needs. Mm-hmm. And that's still something I struggle with today at 40 years old. And so I think that's always the case with anyone, with anything along the way in my journey of life, in any type of relationship, romantic or not. I think I was just not in a good place. I really didn't know. It was my first real relationship and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. And I had this baby and I'm thinking this is what it's supposed to be, this or that, family and society. And, I had more of a traditional Latin, church upbringing, traditional, you must get married, you must, type of thing. Oh, you're pregnant. Good. When are we planning the wedding? Type of thing, So, I don't think I back then purposely wasn't trying to.
Let's get back to the chronological order of things. So you're 22 now. You've graduated from college. You have this degree in education. Where are you and what's happening? You've got a 2-year-old now. Are you still using?
No, I had quit everything, of course, to have the baby, and then I nursed her and everything, and so by then I wasn't. But I want you to know it was actually coming up here pretty soon. I started dating this guy who was not very good news. And so then I was living at home with my mom. The fighting started again. It was kind of like back to where we were as, teenage. And at this time I had my kid with me, my dog with me. And she's like, I'm doing so much for you, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, you owe me, and having this feeling. She's like, I owe you what? Why do you always come at me like that? And then honestly, I had moved out. This boyfriend was only around for a little bit. And then, my mom, just enough to give my mom and I some problems for me to want, leave, move the house. I graduated, I left the house. But then after this boyfriend and I broke up just a couple months later, that's actually when I told my mom, because by then I was on my own. I had my kid. And it was almost like I started realizing things. Oh, the things that parenthood does to you, and being on your own. College helps. You really learn a lot and expand your mind. Look at things from a different point of view. Other ways to look and think and feel and see. And that's when it kind of all started hitting me. And so actually I had started smoking weed again because I talked to my mom, and around that time is about the time I started smoking weed again. Never really got into anything. And that's when I finally kind of told my mom, was around that time, I think 23, 24, on my own with my kiddo, and just thinking, yeah, this is what happened, Mom, and they were good years. We had Hannah and I had really good years. And I know my mom needed some help during that time. She had gone to my brother, to kind of see what was going on and if he knew anything. And unfortunately, he knew a little all too well. And that's something I didn't know.
You had no idea that your brother was in on all the things.
That my brother was being abused as well.
He was too. He was being abused by your stepfather as well. Wow. I wonder what... I can only imagine how natural it would be. And both of you, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, but I can only imagine how natural it would be to be so fucking angry at your mom for allowing all this shit to happen. And not that she allowed it, because this guy did it on his own. But I'm sure there were moments where maybe she felt like she should have done more or could have done more or any of these things. And that must be such a taxing burden to sit on somebody. And I can only imagine how easy it would have been for you and your bro to be just so pissed at her and him, rightfully so, for all of these experiences. Did you at any point, or maybe you still do cycle through that from time to time? And if you do, what are your tools to manage those emotions when they show up for you?
With my mother, I have to say, I pretty much got it out of my system those teenage years. I really did. I rebelled enough to make it hurt. Poor pobrecita, poor thing. I made her suffer more than. We're cool. We're good. We're good. No. Really, truly. I became a mom, and I understood. I understood that she was a foreigner in this country, who didn't know the language, who didn't have schooling, who tried her best, who opened a seamstress shop, and now has various master's degrees and sitting on properties all over, here and in Argentina, and to see her strength and resilience and courage through all her life and what she's experienced, and to know that back then she didn't have anything else and she didn't know. And I definitely trespassed against her a few times. And I got all that angry, resentful, that resentment, that anger, that pure hatred, I did. I got it all out.
But I'm curious, how did you come to forgiveness on that? What was your process of forgiving your mom?
Truly, when I had my daughter, and I understood all the sacrifice, the loneliness, and of course I was a single mom, so, the pressure, but then the other side, the beauty and the joy and the pleasure and the innocence, and that love that I felt for my daughter. And it's like, I know my mom feels that for me, and my mom didn't know. And you're exactly right, Dr. Dave. I knew that she had been abused and had been in abusive relationships and has had an abusive past and a history of, and of trauma herself. And so it's like, I saw that every time, she, back then it was, she's got a new husband, right? Oh, she's married again. But it was, she was trying. God help her. God bless her. I'm so glad she didn't give up on love. My grandmother did, and I almost did. And she didn't. And I'm glad she didn't. And I'm glad she found love, and she found a partner, and they're still madly in love. And 20 years later, and I saw her not as a mother, as my mother, but as a woman, as an equal, as a foreigner, as a person just trying to make a better life for themselves here, and then it's
Did
like,
you guys actually have a conversation, or was it more just inside you released her, you forgave her, or did you guys actually sit down and have a conversation about it?
I think the process of me telling her what had happened was also part of the process of forgiveness. Because it's like I had been already, my parenthood, had been already working me, that soul, that spirit, that, me learning to love in a different way, that it just kind of all, okay. I see now. I see what love is, what real love is. Okay. And my mom does really love me. I know she does. Okay. And so then by the time I told her, it was like, and then that's when her grieving started. And I had to look her straight in the eye. And I said, don't. I carried this long enough for everybody. Don't you dare. Please. Because then everything I did was for nothing.
It's pretty incredible to say to your mom, hey, Mom, I've already done the sentence here. So you don't need to serve any of this. I mean, that's an incredible thing for you to say to your mom. And it's really pretty beautiful too. I mean, that's a neat thing for you to be that aware to say, I've carried it. I've dealt with it. You don't need to.
Please
Let's
don't.
all set this down. Yeah, right. Because we like what you said is so perfect. And Dave and I talk about it all the time. That's what forgiveness is setting it down.
Full unconditional forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop carrying that. It will not serve either one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right,
so
let's not put any more into this than has already been put into it.
And
so
she did. And she honored me and honored my pain and my process and my journey. And I know she needed to go get some help. And I know she went to go talk to someone for a while. And that was her journey that she took on her own. And I told her, Mom, I paid, I served, I did, my journey is where it needs to be. That's you. I can't go there. I'm where I am right here, right now. And this is where I'm going to stay. I cannot go back. I cannot do this with you. You're on your own, lady, basically. And she, okay,
So we're coming up on an hour here, and I want to start to wind down, but I'm going to say it out loud again. I feel like we're going to have you back. There's just so much and so many layers to this story. So I think a nice way to maybe wrap up this particular podcast would be to tie a little bit of a bow on the relationship that you have with your current daughter, and some of the stuff that you guys dealt with together as being a young mom, somebody who, just had the experiences you did and doing your very best to not bring that into her world. And so let's kind of wrap that way, which is to say, what is the relationship that you have with your daughter, and how is it different than the one that you had with your own mom growing up?
Well, and I think it's important that I say that I had to very consciously, because I didn't want exactly what happened to me to happen to my daughter. And so, guys, I had to kind of take this vow of I'm going to do this on my own too. You know what I mean? And I had a relationship here and there, but then truly, even while I was in a relationship, that was always very hands off and very, I kept my daughter as far away from everything, but yet, close to me. I don't know. I think I kept my life about her, for her, because I didn't want that to happen, anything remotely near what happened to me to happen to her. So I remember thinking and saying to myself, all right, well, you're on your own, Lou, let's do this, because I think I knew I was just going to want to do it, and just kind of raise her and just be, innocent girls together. We did a lot of growing up together, only being 20 years apart. I was 20 when she was born. I had just turned 20 in June and she was born in October. So we did a lot of growing up together. I just remember all the every time she was sick, I swear it's I felt like I became a nurse practitioner after a while, it just, I don't know. I was so involved in just her care, her love, her support. And we went to school together because I was a teacher, right? And so we got to travel together. We got to be really fun, innocent girls together. I got to join a lot of what she was doing too, right? So she was in the theater, and then I got to be that theater mom. I really got to live some of these things and do some of these things, and the soccer and the theater and the dance and the, and kind of live, and the violin. Oh my gosh, she was this violinist. And I basically took full charge, foam fingers, shirts, pom-poms, a number one fan. I just, again, to kind of distract I know it's in a way of not dealing. It was just easier to deal with her instead of with a guy, because I think by this point in my life, I figured out, okay, my mom and I are cool. My kid and I are cool. My friends and I are cool. My bro and I are cool. Oh, it's just dudes. I get it. It's just guys. Okay, so I'm just going to avoid all of that and just live.
We had talked about in that last podcast about the fact that you felt like your picker was off, like you just couldn't find somebody good.
Yeah. And I just, after a while, stopped picking. I was like, no, thanks. I'm just scared, and almost kind of going back to like, it's just easier. It's just easier just to not, it's in my case, because I have to deal and process and kind of deal with all these things. So for me, it was easier to not, and just kind of be this fully supportive, like, helicopter, but then trying to like not be a helicopter mom, trying to get off her ass a little bit. And she did all these wonderful things, went to states and varsity sports and violinist. And now she's about to graduate from college and forensic psychology. And she just wants to help people, and she even told me, she's like, I want to make sure the people who are innocent are treated innocently. She's a pretty healthy kid. She's pretty happy. She's got her dad and her dad's side. And, sometimes I'll look at her and be like, I don't know, go ask your dad. You have another one. Like, how cool is that? Some things that sometimes we take for granted. Not everyone has a dad. Not everyone has a mom. Not everyone has a good mom like I did. Someone may have a mom, but they might not have a good mom like I did. Or they might, so I just, my daughter and I did a really good job of just being young and dumb and growing up together. And so now I'm feeling a lot more confident in my picker. I'm starting to pick again. Okay. Like I'm starting to, and it's kind of through these beautiful relationships that I've had develop, friends and family, and these journeys and forgiveness and these tough conversations that you have to have. And I'm trying to pick again. I still pick incorrectly all the time, but that's okay.
Like you said, you're a smart woman who doesn't know what love is. You're figuring it out every day of your life, Lucy. You're going to get
right.
Yeah.
I know what it isn't. There. I'm like, ooh, that's not it. No.
That's good to know. Yeah, what's really special about you, Lucy, is that trauma can do two things to people, and at least in my experience, and feel free, guys, to jump in if you have a stronger opinion on this, but you can either have things happen to you and you can grow up deciding that those same fucking things are going to happen to everybody around you so that they feel the same shit you do, or you take your approach, which is, this will never happen to my daughter. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure she never experiences these things. And I'm going to be that transitional character for her. I'm going to be the parent that I needed when I was 8 years old for her.
Yeah, that's a deliberate choice. So you have to work through quite a bit of your own stuff to come to that point of kind of transcending it and saying, I'm going to be better. I'm going to still make mistakes, but if I get off track, I'm going to catch it as quickly as I can and get back on track again. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. Your daughter's lucky to have you and you her, right? In a lot of ways, yes. You kind of saved each other.
She did. I say it all the time. And I know I told y'all, she saved my life because it really made me stop and taught me what love is, what love was, what love is supposed to be,
Mm.
Yeah.
Lucy, anything you feel like you've left on the table here?
No. Oh, do they want to see the picture?
We should. We've been talking an awful lot in this podcast about the 8-year-old Lucy. And so she brought a photo of herself as an 8-year-old. And yeah, let's see it. Hold it up to the camera there. Look at that side pony. Look at that thing.
That has to be what, 1989, 1990? Oh, yeah.
What do you think about when you look at that little girl?
This one? Oh, gosh. She still has so much potential. Because there's a few things that she didn't quite get to do when she was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, even as a teenager, even as a young adult. But you know what? It's never too late. And she's doing them every day. She's doing them all the time. Yeah. So it's never too late to be 8.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1, to help you feel less alone. 2, encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3, when you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from people who lived it.